Yoni, welcome to Seeking Alpha. Welcome to the show. It's really, really great to have you on. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you very much for having me.
So catch us up, catch listeners, catch viewers up on eToro specifically, but also how you got there. What was your path to creating that? I know it was a bit of a family affair, so you can share how easy or difficult it is with starting a business with your family, but catch us up how you got to where you are right now.
Sure. So, and I'm sure that would resonate very well with the Seeking Alpha audience. I've been passionate about capital markets since I was very young. Started trading stocks and following the markets when I was about 13. My father was the founder and CEO of a NASDAQ listed company, Magic Software. So we sort of lived in the house from quarter to quarter, always sort of looking at the markets, following the stock markets. And I come from a computer sciences background. I did my master's in computer sciences, and at the same time, my older brother Ronen did his master's in the Royal College of Arts in London in industrial design, and he did some work for Bloomberg. And we started brainstorming about sort of our joint passion from one end to capital markets to the very much surprising back then, but even today, horrible user experience of actually trading stocks and trading the global markets, especially when you're outside the US in a place like Israel, when you trade through the banks with relatively archaic systems. And even when you look at user interfaces of still sort of the largest traditional brokerage companies, it's very disconnected disconnected from what you learn about user experience on the internet back in 2006 and 2007, but even today. Ronen always used to say that I have an accountant fetish, sitting with multiple screens, with charts and Excels and lots of numbers screaming at me. And we started brainstorming about how can we improve and hack the user experience to make it simpler and more engaging to trade the global markets. And we started eToro back in 2007 with a vision of opening the global markets for everyone to trade and invest in a simple and transparent way. We wanted to bring millions of people from all around the world for the experience, which we believe is very important, of trading capital markets. And today, 14 years after, eToro today is the largest social trading network in the world. We have 20 million registered users from 100 different countries, where our users can follow stocks, can talk about the different markets in a social network, with a news feed similar design to other social network, which is adapted. Just what you see is the markets you're interested in. So people talking about Google, Apple, Tesla, or cryptocurrencies. And then our users can fund an account with eToro and trade commission-free stock trading. We're the only global broker-dealer offering commission-free stock trading across both US equities as well as European securities, alongside cryptocurrencies, commodities, ETFs, indices, and traditional currencies. And the unique part of eToro's social trading network is you can actually see the track record of the users who are trading on their own account. You can see their performance month by month, their yearly track records, and you can see their portfolio allocations and all of their historical trades. And then you can use our patented technology of Copy Trader to automatically copy the most successful investors on the network. So our popular investor network today has about 1,500 popular investors who are copied by hundreds of thousands of individuals. And the way that works is you can see someone who generated on average 30% IRR for the past 7 years. And the same way that you can just buy Bitcoin for $1,000 or invest in Facebook for $1,000, you can copy someone for $1,000, and that will copy his entire portfolio with the same proportion fractional shares into your $1,000. And every time he trades, he'll trade in your account at the same time, the same price, and the same proportion, basically following his returns on your $1,000. And we've seen a lot of users who come to eToro globally who are passionate about capital markets, but don't necessarily, I don't think anyone has necessarily the time to cover all markets all the time. So it's a great way to delegate parts of your account to other successful investors, whether you're an expert or whether you're just coming in and you wanted to buy a couple of stocks and you're happy to follow the performance of the most successful investors with the rest of your portfolio on eToro.
So great explanation. When you guys started, it was more of like a Forex experience, and then you kind of, the next iteration I would say is crypto, and then you guys started having equities. Was it always the plan to go from step to step to step, or did that come in the process of discovering what it is you want it to be?
It's all our vision from when we started eToro has always been to open the global markets for everyone to trade and invest in a simple and transparent way. We're looking to add all markets eventually into the platform, where we believe we want to add the markets based on customers' interest in them, and obviously the simplicity of us being able to roll out those markets globally. So we added equities relatively early on. I think in 2013 or 14 was when we launched equities. Before that, we had indices and commodities as well. Crypto came relatively early on because I've been passionate about crypto since 2011 when I discovered Bitcoin. So we bought some Bitcoin to the company's treasury 10 years before Elon Musk, unfortunately not for enough money. But that was an interesting dialogue in the board back then to explain to VCs what Bitcoin is and why I think it's interesting in 2011. Then we launched Bitcoin trading. We were the first regulated brokerage in Europe to launch Bitcoin trading back in 2013, just before the market crash of Bitcoin, where it went from $1,200 back to $200. So interesting timing to launch Bitcoin, but then we enjoyed the first crypto rally as one of the very few platforms in Europe and Asia which enabled access not only to Bitcoin, but very early on to Ethereum, to XRP, to other assets as well. So we added ETH, I think it was about $8, and obviously now it's about at $1,800. So our users sort of enjoyed the first crypto rally of 2017 and early 18. And then we saw significant scale up to the business. We grew about 100 times in a specific KPI of new funded accounts per day. We grew 100 times from January 2017 to the top days of December 2017. So a very exciting year there. When we think about our vision looking forward, we'd like to add any type of asset class. That's also our passion around blockchain technology. Is we believe blockchain technology will flatten the world of finance, will transition more financial assets into the digital realm, and it will see basically more assets, whether it's fixed income or even art today with NFTs. We'll see more and more assets that are being tokenized through blockchain technology, and therefore our ability to relatively easily add them into our global network of investors worldwide.
So something that we're talking about on the show, CEO Interviews, isn't just leading a company, but being a disruptive leader and being in a disruptive space. Obviously, certainly, you guys have that in spades. You have that in spades. And listening to you talk now and seeing kind of the history of how eToro has evolved, it's been very clear that you guys have a vision, and that the vision is very much being met in an excited way by the marketplace, right? The cryptocurrency a few years before it became big, commission-free trading a little bit before it exploded. Certainly, we're seeing huge growth, which is evidenced in eToro. As you said, you have 20 million users. I think you had 5 million come on last year. You had something like 1.2 just in January of this year, which is crazy. Those are crazy numbers. But also, I think anybody paying attention to the capital markets is seeing how excited the average retail investor is with Corona, with the time, with some money, if they're able to kind of start to play the markets. When you talk about those registered users, are those registered users with money in the capital markets, or are they just signed up for eToro?
No, those are users. The 20 million registered users is an accumulated number of the total number of users who registered to eToro year over year throughout the years. So it took us 9 years to add the first 5 million registered users into the platform. And then in 2020, another 5 million registered users joined into the platform. Then a part of those users fund accounts and start trading with our brokerage accounts, whether it's for commission-free stock trading or cryptocurrencies, and start sharing their trading activity on eToro. So we have two parts of eToro. The front and center is really the social network to enable people to educate themselves about the markets, to follow the markets, to get to know successful investors. And then the other part is obviously the brokerage part, where people can actually deposit funds and start trading the global markets.
Got you. And then in terms of growing, you guys already have a presence in the States, but you're looking to grow that even more. How difficult is that? Because the regulatory picture in the States is, you know, very, very tough. And then when you're bringing in the crypto part and how you guys, your business model in general, how does that match with the US market?
So we're one of the very few high-growth fintech platforms who operate in 100 different countries and are regulated globally, both in the UK, in Europe, in Australia, and now regulated both as a crypto trading platform in the US. So our initial launch relatively recently in the US was of our crypto trading. We're very excited to see significant growth right now in the US, obviously with Crypto Rally 2.0 upon us. So a lot of excitement, renewed customer interest that hasn't been seen since December 2017 coming to the crypto markets. And we're now working on expanding our offering in the US to commission-free stock trading as well. So again, what's quite unique in how we build the platform, and it's a big difference between the first e-trading revolution, which for a lot of people, sort of, you know, the older millennials or xillennials, was very exciting during the dot-com era. So the first dot-com era was very much discount brokers growing regionally. And whether it's in the US or whether it's in every single country in Europe or in Asia, the discount brokers really grew up regionally and then consolidated mostly into the large banks. If you think about Morgan Stanley buying E-Trade right now, and that process happened in most countries in the world and left the brokerage industry still a hyper local industry where the majority of money, users, and trading activity is done with local platforms with a very high focus on also local equities. So during the first sort of the dot-com era, people in Germany used to trade German stocks. People in Italy used to trade Italian stocks. Now, 20 some years after, we have a generation that's a global mindset generation. Everybody's looking at the same things around the internet. When Tesla goes up in a single day by 10 or 20% more similar to a cryptocurrency than to a stock, we see customers from 100 different countries who are excited about the story of Tesla that same day. So I think what we're seeing today is led by a confluence of circumstances that includes zero interest rates, which is very relevant because people realize they need to do something with their money. And that's, by the way, not only a global phenomena, that even is more significant in some countries where people were used to interest rates of north of 5%, and suddenly now they're 0.5%. We see people obviously getting more comfortable with digital acceleration of many, many industries. So everything transformed digital because of the unfortunate circumstances of being locked up. But I think that transition is here to stay. People realized they can do either their financial transactions instead of in a branch. They can do everything online from their mobile phone. And in addition to that, there's a very wide discussion, or two very wide discussions, both in the intersection of social networking together with trading and investing. So suddenly that dialogue grew exponentially over the last 3, 4, 5 months. and together with another interesting dialogue, which is the value of money. So when governments are printing unprecedented amounts of money, when people see stimulus checks, when people see trillions of dollars printed or trillions of euros printed, they're asking themselves, what is the value of money? Now, that dialogue intensified, obviously, through the crypto industry, because Bitcoin is a form of store of value. So the entire community, which is tens of millions of people who bought cryptocurrencies, bought them because they think it's a hedge against fiat money, which, by the way, outside the US and outside of Europe and the UK and some very specific countries, it's a very reasonable hedge against your local currency. I think that dialogue around the value of money and the importance of doing something with your money expanded into the tipping point of a whole generation discovering capital markets. Now, at the end, they're discovering something that people who are passionate about capital markets know for the most of their adult lives since they started learning capital markets, which is what Warren Buffett has been saying for, I think, the past 50 years, which is you should invest your money in the stock markets. And if you consistently invest your money in the stock markets and in the markets, it's going to be better than having your money just as fiat money, as dollars or euros or pounds in an account. And of course, I'd say, Warren Buffett's view is stock markets are preferable than fixed income markets. And we need to remember, again, what is happening in the retail space has this feedback loop that as long as the markets are also going up, and as long as the retail stock picks are the ones going up and beating the markets, that feedback loop keeps on bringing more users into all of the different digital platforms. Now, research is showing that millennials are going to be the richest cohort and the biggest cohort of people on the planet over the next 10 years. The majority of millennials are looking to manage their investments through a mobile app and through new innovative technologies that bring in a different user experience than traditional financial services. And over the next 10 years, there's research showing that this is in the trillions of dollars. So a significant part of the world equities is going to move to digital platforms. So the opportunity here it is in the trillions, and it's a generational buying moment opportunity.
So speaking of that generational buying opportunity, you guys have a very exciting recent announcement, which we've kind of even buried the lead, not even talking about it up until now, but you guys just did a SPAC announcement, a 10 billion with Fintech Acquisition. And there were kind of some different stories along the way in the past, I would say like 6 months, about what is going to happen with eToro, for how much money, how are you guys going to come to market? And then this was announced. How was that process for you, and how much did the process kind of change because of all this excitement and all this data that you're talking about, which eToro really like fits in right there?
So first of all, we're very excited about this transition from a private company to a public company. We're very excited about the deal and proud to bring in the FinTech group as sponsors and partners to basically go through us in the transition towards a public company. We're obviously big fans of public markets and are very excited about the next stage of growth of eToro as a public company. I think in general, we viewed the SPAC space. We have known the Cohen group for a while, the FinTech group for a while. And we do think that SPACs are an innovative way for companies to transition from the private markets to public markets. So we understand and are watching very closely everything happening in the SPAC market. We've seen a lot of very successful SPACs, both of the Cohen group and other successful SPACs going through this transition. And we thought this is a great opportunity for us to make this transition to eToro. And we believe this will also help us accelerate our business in the US and globally. So obviously, as we grow the company and as the company grew significantly, 147% year over year revenue growth from 2019 to 2020, we wanted to be able to eventually share that next stage of growth together, both with our investors and global investors, and obviously have our customers understand and have that transparency of a public markets company so they can understand, trust eToro for the next stage of growth, and obviously scale their accounts with us. So as we grow and they amass wealth, they can grow their accounts with us and manage more of their investments and savings with us as we grow.
And as you grow and develop and broaden into new markets, are there going to be changes to your business model? Like, do you have to adapt based on the regulations in different markets that you go to?
Sure. Every market has a different infrastructure, regulatory infrastructure, usually market infrastructure in some cases. In Europe, we're basically principal trading, so we're clearing the trades and revenues are generated in eToro by the bid-ask spread across all of the asset classes on eToro, whether it's equities, which have grown significantly 10 times over the past 4 years, or whether it's crypto, where since there wasn't really market infrastructure back in 2017, we had to really build our own market infrastructure, our own exchange, our own cold storage, or whether it's traditional currencies, which trade in a very different way to securities, as it's an OTC market. So for each of our basically lines of asset classes, they operate under a bit of a different market infrastructure, and users from different countries on board to different regulated entities. So people in the US on board to our US entity. Currently, it's crypto only. We're going to add equities there. In the UK, they on board to our UK regulated entity. So each basically of our regulated entities would have its own product governance and what type of products can users who on board into that entity can trade. And it's quite the copy trading feature that we've built that enables users from different countries to copy different people from different countries. I think that's a very sort of unique part, connecting people from different countries. Again, coming out of Israel, which obviously has its own public markets, but I would generally say that it's much more interesting to look at the global markets out of Israel rather than just the Israeli markets. And for us to be able to communicate with successful investors coming from Europe, from the UK, from Asia, from the US, I think that's a big opportunity to really build a global network of successful investors.
And are you guys buying futures on the crypto?
So we do not offer futures on crypto. We just offer a sort of a cash settled crypto, so people can actually buy Bitcoin on eToro and then transfer it to the wallet and use it for payments. We have, as part of our operation, also looked at a crypto future, so we're familiar with that for our trading operations.
And how much is it, in terms of how you're growing, as you say, it's a global landscape that you're playing in. How much do you have to be, how much does each kind of part of the each region talk to each other? In other words, like what we've seen recently in terms of the crazy volatility in the price of Bitcoin and how that's affected the technical ability to trade Bitcoin and other crypto, or like the short squeeze on GameStop, right? Different things that are coming to play and that are causing these technical issues with trading. How much are there different teams getting that together? Is that a broad voice that you guys are trying to develop? How difficult is it to navigate the different regions as you're growing as one entity?
I think in general, a lot of these issues are market infrastructure issues.
Mhm.
In a lot of cases, we do see a lot of similarities between the different regions. So eventually someone trading Bitcoin from the US, Australia, the UK, or Germany is similar as we process these trades internally. I think we're building one platform to fit users from all around the world. And that's a big part of the unique offering of eToro, is to enable these users from all around the world to participate within the same social network. We have definitely seen interest rising in a lot of different markets at the same time around the same assets.
Mhm.
So again, when a specific stock is rising in value, and when a specific stock is rising in customer interest in the US, we would usually see the same happening in 100 different countries. When Bitcoin goes up, where there's a crypto rally on a specific asset, we see that happening all around the world. And I think, again, it's a very global mindset generation in general, especially when you think about investment opportunities and when you think about the global markets.
And what do you feel like, we said with the SPACs, one of the advantages of going the SPAC route as opposed to the IPO route is the ability to share guidance with investors and kind of give a more developed picture to investors. I guess within that guidance, would you say that the SPAC has afforded you the ability to scale with what your plans were already, or did it give you new plans that you were able to bring to market because of that?
I think it helped us solidify our 5-year plan and 5-year strategy.
Mm-hmm.
I think we used to have on a yearly basis as a private company always a 3-year strategy. So we tried to end the year with a document saying, here's eToro 2020, here's eToro 2022. I think thinking about the public markets and where we want to be over the next 5 years really helped us create that strategic dialogue internally, and then add to that, of course, all of the financial planning and thinking internally. I think in general, as companies grow, it's always good to have long-term horizon of thinking of both strategy, product roadmap, financial planning, scale. Where do we want to get? I'd be happy to share my 10 years thinking, but we probably would need to make sure that that's becoming public information if we want to share 10-year thinking. But I think, again, the opportunity here is still in its infancy because this entire generation, so I'm the oldest of Generation Y, and sometimes, well, my brother is Generation X, so he doesn't like me just calling it millennials. So it's a bit wider, but that age group of sort of 18 to 45, which are just amassing wealth at this point and are really reaching that point in time where they have the money to invest. And we need to remember that historically, the average age at traditional brokerages is north of 50. The average age in sort of the larger incumbents of wealth management is north of 60. And that comes because historically, you didn't have fractional shares. It would cost a significant ticket fee to invest overseas. So if someone from Italy wanted to buy just Amazon stock, they had to go through the process of wiring euros from one place to another, converting these euros into dollars, then buying one share of Amazon, which is $3,300, which is a lot for somebody who's 25 or 30 maybe. And I think now when you can build a portfolio, buy a portfolio of 50 different stocks for $1,000, that is a diversified portfolio that really changes the mechanics of how many people can enter the market. And the funnel just grew somewhere in between 10-fold to 100-fold. And it really haven't seen still the impact of that. There are tens of millions if I wouldn't exaggerate by saying hundreds of millions of people who will access the global markets over the next decade.
So that's what I was going to ask, because, you know, somebody could say that your natural competition are the established brokerage houses, but it seems like they're not, because they're playing to a different demographic at the very least, or a different type of investor. Whereas exactly what you're describing, you guys are going much younger and a much more modern approach. Would you agree with that? Would you feel like your competition is more Robinhood and less E-Trade?
Generally, I would say when we look at the competitive landscape, we say you can look at the total available market, and the majority of the total available market is still very much with the incumbents. But when we look at the competitive landscape, it's usually the fintechs and fintech brokers. So we definitely see the apps that are on the app stores gaining popularity. Those are the companies that I believe are going to win the race eventually on the hearts and minds and funds of millennials. Because again, when you ask my father, please define for me what's a financial product, he's gonna say it's a hedge fund or a mutual fund or a private equity fund. So his thinking is a financial product is the regulatory / tax corporate structure of how to invest his money somewhere that has an ISIN. If you ask a millennial what's a financial product, he's going to name you apps one after another. So the actual definition of what is a financial product has moved from the realm of a line in your bank to a mobile app on your phone.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So talk to us about your guidance for the next coming years. What do you guys have planned? How do you see it going forward? I know I'm talking from Tel Aviv, and I know like Israelis still can't use eToro. Is that something that's going to be coming up for Israelis to use? Talk to us about the what you guys see for the next couple of years.
Sure. So we within basically the financial plans and projections we provided, we based them a lot on historical information. So the way we view basically our growth plans is all about bringing in new customers to eToro, where historically we've seen and learned how customers, which is, by the way, something quite amazing. It's the law of large numbers. So in a lot of financial institutions, they sort of cherry pick a specific funnel and look at different types of customers with different channels and different products and different behaviors. What we've learned over time is both geographically, which is mind-blowing, but also who the customer is, whether it's people coming to buy cryptocurrencies or to invest in our copy portfolios or to buy commission-free stock trading, that over time, when you look at a group of 1,000 investors, those 1,000 investors over time look similar at how they generate revenues over time. Now, some of these will become very big investors, will potentially invest millions of dollars in eToro, will trade very frequently. Some of these will just open accounts with $500, buy one stock, and stay for a very long period of time. But what we've learned is when you bring in a group of users together over time, they generate a very healthy revenue or ARPU over time. So our view is to basically expand how we communicate with clients, and how we communicate. When I say clients, it's either people who already registered to the social network, or people who can just see our ads, or people who already had a funded account with eToro. How can we communicate what's happening in the markets consistently with a very large audience through the tech platforms? So the way we view Google and Facebook and Twitter and Taboola and all of our different channels is it's a way for us to communicate with our clients and potential clients about what's happening in the markets. Because there's always something interesting happening in the markets, and that something interesting is what would lead a customer to say, okay, I actually want to make that trade. I actually wanted to buy Apple 3 times before. Now I actually see that Apple has an earnings release or Apple has a new iPhone. This is now my opportunity to get into investing in Apple. So because of that, our focus is on growing the way we communicate with clients, which again is both internally through things like our CRM and push notification about the markets. We're using a lot of machine learning to learn about how we communicate with our clients about what's interesting to these clients based on their experience and customer journey with us. And then we're looking to significantly expand that over time. Last year, we spent about $220 million on marketing, and then most of it is performance marketing. But despite the fact it's performance marketing, we believe in what is called brand performance. As long as you build good creative, good marketing strategy, you talk about something that resonates well with customers, as you scale your performance marketing, you also scale your brand globally. And we'd like to grow from, I think at the end of last year, we had 1 million funded accounts at eToro to grow to 6 million in 2025. So significant growth of the number of funded accounts. And at the same time, also provide our users more products, more services, more premium content and premium services. So we're going to launch the eToro Money product in UK and then in Europe, which basically is a current account and a debit card, first for our club members, and later on we're going to add a subscription model to that, to our users, to the rest of the users who want to basically participate in that. So our club program today in eToro adds a lot of benefits to customers. So you join eToro, most of the customers join eToro with less than $1,000. And as they reach $5,000, they get assigned a customer success manager. As they reach $50,000, they get assigned an account manager who can also review their portfolio and connect them with the right resources in the company. And they get a lot of potential benefits, premium content as they grow through the club tiers. So our view is both scaling significantly the number of funded accounts, the number of registered users on the platform, and at the same time scaling the account sizes in eToro. So we see, and there's a nice slide on it in the investors, and of course, any viewers can go to investors.etoro.com to see our investors presentation, is that the club tiers has a direct linear correlation to the basically median age of customers. So the median age of our diamond clients, who are accounts with more than $250,000, is I think 13 years older than the median age of our bronze clients, which are users with less than $5,000.
Do you feel like that's because they're starting with more money?
I generally, you know, and that's just a general rule. As people get older, they amass wealth. Your investments and savings grow. When you're young, you can, if you're interested in the markets, you usually can buy $500 worth of Tesla. And by the way, I even think this is even more accurate when you think about people who are passionate about capital markets. I very much believe that people who are interested in capital markets, learn how to read financial statements and quarterly earnings reports. I believe that cohort of people in general are going to be wealthier than the average population, because when you're interested in how money markets and how capital markets work, when you educate yourselves about it, when you learn how to generate returns on your investments, I think that will increase significantly the probability of you becoming a wealthier, a mass affluent or a wealthier individual as you grow older. But by definition, people who are 25 on average have less than people who are 35 on average, and have less than people who are 45 on average.
Yeah, a big believer also in education being a key factor in the ability to accrue wealth, and how much that matters, and not just kind of following the trend, but also like really digging in, which it sounds like you guys are wanting to do, build this kind of holistic experience and how to invest and how to trade, which is really awesome to see. Does that growth, does that bringing on new subscribers, new users, new clients, does that involve going to different regions? Does that involve like, are you guys working on the regulatory side to open it up to different markets?
Yes, we're definitely excited about opening eToro in more markets. Obviously, the US expansion is a very big and exciting journey for us. But I would say again, generally, and if you think about it, this is why it's a bit surprising that the financial services industry is so hyper-local. The truths about capital markets, about how to invest your money are global ones, right? Diversify, do your own research, make sure that you make decisions that are based on long-term thinking. So when there is a correction, and are always corrections, you don't get frightened and run away when things are worse. And I think because of those truths, and it's easy to see on the eToro platform, people who joined eToro maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, went through the crypto rally, generated 300% returns during the crypto rally. You can actually even see my portfolio on eToro. So I think I did the 600% returns back in 2017, and then had the significant drop, obviously, in 2018, right, during crypto winter. So I think people who went through these periods of market rallies, bubbles burst, learn the importance of diversification. And when you go into diversify your portfolio, you'll realize relatively quickly it's hard to diversify because you probably are already invested in all the things you believe in if you're active in the market. So to diversify, you have to educate yourself with other people, right? So if you're interested only in tech stocks and crypto, in order to diversify, you have to find people who maybe are value investors. So after my dinner with Warren Buffett, we built the Value Investor Club in eToro. So I'll have people to copy who believe more in value investing versus growth investing on eToro. Because if I personally want to diversify, a bigger part of my portfolio when I'm copying people needs to go to people who are less correlated in their investments to my account.
Yeah, use the community. Absolutely. Did I just hear you say that you had dinner with Warren Buffett? Did you just say that?
Yeah, I was very lucky. Yeah, I was very lucky last year to have been invited by Justin, the founder of Tron. So he bid on the yearly eBay charity lunch with Warren Buffett. So it's interesting because this was a minute before the Corona outbreak. This was February last year, and we had dinner in Omaha. And what was amazing is this was we came a group of crypto enthusiasts. So I'm sort of on both sides, right? I'm a crypto enthusiast, but I'm also a capital markets fan. And it was a super interesting dinner for me because I read his books and I read a lot of things about him. I always say that the Oracle from Omaha is sort of a sounding guide for an entire generation to believe in capital markets. And that's one of the reasons capital markets are so fragmented, is because they were local. And locally, other than the US market, most capital markets are not as successful as it's clear from US capital markets. So if you live in a lot of different countries, you don't necessarily have grown up to a sort of a very clear sounding voice saying you need to invest at least part of your savings and investments in capital markets. In a lot of different countries, when you talk to people about capital markets, they tell you capital markets is betting, people can't make money in capital markets. In the US, it's very clear that capital markets work and people can make money in capital markets. And Warren is definitely sort of an oracle of that thesis. What's interesting is that during our dinner, you could almost hear his voice coming out of the books, right? So I read a couple of books and a lot of his quotes, and you'd ask him a question and I'd almost understand what he's gonna answer because I already read the answer in one of his books. But then after 2 hours of dinner where crypto people tried to convince him about crypto, which seemed a bit futile, which by the way makes sense because he doesn't believe in gold either, right? So a crypto or Bitcoin is a store of wealth. It's a hedge against governments. He doesn't believe in hedging. So he doesn't believe in hedging because he says hedging is betting against something that good. I want the dollar to be strong, so I don't want to hedge against the dollar because hedging is a self-fulfilling prophecy. He doesn't believe in commodities like gold because he says companies, if you buy now all of the gold in the world, you'll have a football stadium filled with gold. With the same amount, you can actually buy the entirety of Apple, Google, Facebook, and Tesla. What do you prefer, a stadium filled with gold that does nothing for the next 10 years, or all of these companies generating so much innovation, so many products that people want to use, so many employees that get paid, making so much for the economy? And that thesis makes sense from his point of view and from his beliefs, because he thinks about the amount of money he's deploying to the markets, and it's not only about generating now returns to himself, it's about what's the impact of those investments. And there's no doubt that investing in companies is supporting these companies. It's supporting those employees. It's building the economy, where buying gold is purely a hedge. Buying Bitcoin is purely a hedge from a financial point of view. It's great. There's a thesis around Bitcoin we can go on later about why maybe it's good for renewable energy, but we'll leave that aside. So it made sense. And actually what happened for me in the dinner is that we came to the dinner to try and pitch Bitcoin to Warren Buffett. And I had this aha moment, really emphasizing everything that I believed in since I was very young in capital markets. It was just accelerated that and sort of created that conviction 10 times or 100 times as I was clear about how important what we do in eToro, enabling access to global markets, building track records so people can see them, educating people about capital markets, and being able to voice and say, it's important for people to invest in capital markets. It's important for people to understand how capital markets work and to invest their dollars in capital markets. And like what he is saying very clearly is put all your money in capital markets. Put 100% of your wealth in capital markets. For me, before meeting him, it was very hard to say that because the traditional wealth management is 60, 70% fixed income. Stocks are riskier. Cash is king. And then you sit with the Oracle from Omaha, sort of clearly saying what's written in his books, made me realize, and relates also to something else he's written in his books, which is if he wasn't one of the world's best and biggest investors, he would become a teacher, is when you hear someone as successful as him in capital markets continuously say the same thing, you have to relate to that sort of beautiful conviction in capital markets and the fact that capital markets work, and that platforms like eToro, who bring people into capital markets, is something very important for capital markets, for the economy. And it also includes a very large responsibility part to make sure that users know what they're doing on the platform.
Wow, what a tremendous opportunity, and how crazy that it happened like at the last minute before it could you'll ever be able to do that again, most likely. What an amazing opportunity. Was there anything he said that surprised you? You're like, what? Warren Buffett thinks that? Or everything felt like something that you thought he would say?
There were a couple of discussions that were interesting because I haven't sort of dwelled into them before via his reading, he was very knowledgeable of blockchain technology. So while he doesn't believe in crypto as an asset class, from a very reasonable point of view that he doesn't believe in gold or commodities either, he does understand the value of blockchain technology, and said that almost in every single company he's at the board at or involved at, everybody's talking about how can they use blockchain technology to better manage their business, whether it's supply chain, whether it's others. So I think that surprised me how knowledgeable he is. Maybe it's, I think he also mentioned that his friendship with Bill Gates contributes to his knowledge in technology. The other part, we talked a bit about sort of tax benefits, equality. So obviously I was familiar with how much he's involved in philanthropy, but he was very clear, and I think that a bit surprised me, although again, a reasonable take from someone who is in the US and grew in the US. When we talked about Bitcoin and the importance of Bitcoin as a store of value, as a payment system outside the US, and when we talked about, we also have in eToro a social impact project that's universal basic income on the blockchain. So we're very passionate about combining social good together with blockchain technology. And when we started talking about both equality as well as cryptocurrency or system mechanics, it was very clear that he says, you know, I'm interested in the US. I'm interested in the US economy. I'm interested in the US dollar and whether it works. And as long as it works, my son will want US dollars versus Bitcoin. And I'm interested in inequality in the US. So I'm looking at that from the perspective of tax structure, tax benefits in the US. And again, it's very reasonable when you're in the US. You know, when we think in eToro, we always think globally. One of the reasons we think Bitcoin is interesting, for example, is because the majority of people in the world today live in countries where you wouldn't buy their fiat currency. The majority, there's I think 190 fiat currencies today in the world, 180 of them at least. If I'd offer you now one Bitcoin or the equivalent of those fiat currency, 100% majority, super majority of people would say, give me Bitcoin, right? I won't name specific currencies to not insult anyone. But when you're very US focused and you're looking at the US economy and the US economy is healthy and you're looking at the dollar and the dollar works a reserve currency and you're looking at inflation in the dollar, from that point of view, I understand why he might not necessarily look at crypto as a hedge for governments outside the US.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, the whole emphasis on investing in capital markets. I've seen it, like speaking of living in Tel Aviv, there was this huge push on advertising with Corona to say, you know, there would be like an older man or a funky 20-something-year-old, people that you wouldn't assume would be investing their money. Say, this person invests in the stock exchange, this person invests. And I think it's slowly starting to come to the attention of the average person, not just in the States, not just that follows Warren Buffett, not just that's a client of eToro's or signed up to Seeking Alpha, but really like in the mainstream general public. I think people are really starting to understand that more as a real factor in gaining wealth. So it's cool to see that starting to be adopted more and more, I think. Yeah,
that's definitely a big part of our thesis. I think we're at that inflection point. I think global markets is the global markets, whether it's US equities or European equities or sometimes Asian equities or crypto markets. I think building access to those markets, building education to help people understand how to navigate those markets, whether it's tools like copy trading or portfolios, I think that's key to accelerate eventually the global mass adoption of investing in capital markets. What, by the way, is very clear in the US is very far from it outside the US, In the US, I think it's 51% of households who own stocks. In most countries around the world, it's less than 20%. And if you take out of that local mutual funds and tax wrappers and just ask something even more basic, how many people hold US stocks, right? Apple, Facebook, Google, you'll get to less than 10%, significantly less than 10% in most countries. And I think that's something that's going to significantly change over the next 10 years.
Yeah, let's hope, because it would make sense for the average person. Let's hope that changes. The follow-up question to that kind of like expanding borders and opening things up and the access and the ease and everything that we've been talking about, I think the troubling aspect of opening all that up is the privacy issues and people, you know, the cybersecurity concerns. How big of a discussion is that for eToro? How much time, money, bandwidth are you guys expanding on protecting all of that?
I'll split that discussion into two. One is obviously in eToro, we consider security and cybersecurity a very significant part of what we eventually provide to our customers. I would say in crypto, that's even more significant as we custody our customer assets in air-gapped custody solutions that we've developed together with a couple of Israeli startups. So I think our view is security is a very important part of what we bring into customers, both in crypto, but as well as in security, securities trading, etc. Our chief information officer also runs our chief security office, is a very significant part of what we do in eToro. And we try to provide sort of basic tools, two-factor authentication, as well as obviously our significant, I think it's now over 400 people of customer success and customer support to help with our customers to make sure that they feel secure. And obviously regulation goes a lot into that as well. So I have to say, I was surprised and happy to see that regulators, financial regulators, are at the cutting edge of understanding the importance of technological security and cybersecurity. So we're investing a lot in that domain. We're a global platform that offers its services to users from 100 countries, and we see security as a significant pillar of what we provide our customers. Privacy is a bit of another issue. I think what we bring in is actually something that also resembles a bit the innovation, the real innovation that Bitcoin brought into the table, which is not everything needs to be private. Now, Bitcoin and what we do is very, very different, but the real aha moment or innovation around Bitcoin and blockchain in general is that they're public, right? You can see, anyone can see the entire records of Bitcoin online very easily, or Ethereum. Everybody can see those pseudo-anonymous addresses of a wallet, but the entire database is public. And that would be, you know, if you tell HSBC or JP Morgan 10 years ago, let's have our security strategy be, let's make our database public, they'd throw you out of the room. But that is really the genius part here, is what protects Bitcoin, the Bitcoin network, is not only the technology and the proof of work, it is the fact that everybody can see the database. And if something happens to that database, thousands upon thousands of people will say, hey, something happened here, and they'll fix it. Even, you know, even to the extreme case of people's concerns of what happens if there's quantum computing and the current proof of work is not quantum resistant. If something happens to the database, within seconds, everybody's going to say, hey, something happened to the database. Where's the last version of the database that was intact? okay, that's now the last version of the database. Now let's add a quantum resistant feature to the proof of work and relaunch it, because Bitcoin is that network that people are seeing and agreeing on that database. And from privacy point of view, you'd say that's insane. Like, all of your financial information in Bitcoin is out there. It's true that it's pseudo-anonymous, but that potentially is very easy to hack for users. Then the other part is what we do in eToro is people used to think your investments should be private. But why should they be private? If you're investing in 10 great stocks or 20 great stocks, why should you keep that information private? If you're smart, you have good track record, and you're buying these stocks, on eToro, I can either just copy you, which would be beneficial for you because we pay our popular investors, or it'll be beneficial for you because that just means someone else just bought the stocks that you believe in, which means more people are investing into the stocks that you believe in. So as retail investors, it actually makes a lot of sense to share that information. Now, it's different for institutional investors. If you're an institutional investor and you need to manage other people's money, and your entire, the reason you exist is because you can manage money better than your clients, then you want your decisions to be made in private, and you want to make those decisions before other institutional investors make these decisions, right? So it's really about timing. But if you think about retail investors, it's the opposite. They should share their investments because that supports eventually their investments. And it actually creates a very interesting dialogue for people about, and again, that's a part of what we believe in. We believe that people should invest in companies that they love, companies that they use their products. We see a big part of that, by the way, in eToro. The super majority of stocks traded on eToro are stocks that, if I'll tell you these stocks now and ask you what is their product, you'll be able to tell me. There are a lot of companies traded on public markets that if I'll tell you their name, you won't know anything about them unless you read somewhere. But if I ask you what does Beyond Meat do, what does Lemonade do, what does Fiverr do, you'll know. And those are the stocks that retail investors are interested in, because they're interested in investing in stocks that they believe in. They believe in their products, they believe in their companies. So if you believe in something and you invest in something because you believe in it, you actually want other people to see what you believe in, and to potentially either copy or just invest in what you believe in.
This is, I think, such an expression of the difference of generations. I think the generation that's growing up, what you said, between 18 and 45, maybe they're the oldest generation to kind of understand, forgive me if you're older than that and understand this completely. But I would say in general, that generalization is true, that there's a difference between transparency and privacy. And it's a fine line, but an important line, I think, to understand, especially when you're heading up a company that deals so directly with that. I think it's such an important distinction to make, and kind of understanding how to celebrate transparency without sacrificing privacy is so key in this part of the world, in this part of the marketplace, I should say. What I was going to say about part of the world was, I was going to ask you, we're both in Israel, which is known as Innovation Nation. You said that your father was also an entrepreneur and was involved with the public markets. I remember seeing a TikTok video a few weeks ago where a kid was saying, this is what a day trader's life is like, and their father was upstairs just swearing. So I'm curious if growing up in the environment of being the son of an entrepreneur, and it sounds like your brother has been affected by it also, did it deter you? Was it something that threw you off of that at the beginning, or was that something you saw and always wanted to experience for yourself?
I remember I wanted to be an entrepreneur since I was very young. I remember that maybe 16, 17, somebody asked me, well, what do I want to do in life? I said, I want to build products and run companies that build products. That was sitting with a friend playing in a guitar, telling me he wants to be a guitar player. So I think for me, that inspiration of building businesses is something that inspired me since I was very young. Our grandfather was also an entrepreneur and built a bank. So for us, it was like continuing that. And I think it's also very important. I have friends, and I think you see that in general. Like I have friends who their parents are doctors, they become doctors. Parents become lawyers, they become lawyers. I had a couple of jokes, but I'll avoid them now. But I think the fact that and I think that's a big reason why we are Startup Nation and there's so much innovation happening right now in Israel, is because it's already a third generation of entrepreneurs who have people to learn from the second generation and from the first generation. And we were just lucky to be in a house where you can come at dinner and say, I got this term sheet. Can you help me look and understand what's written in this term sheet? And I think today more and more people in Israel will have that friend in their circle where they can say, hey, I got a term sheet. What can you tell me about this term sheet? Of course, today you can actually just go on the internet and do that in a dialogue as well. But I think building a company, raising money for a company is something that really requires both an ecosystem of investors, of entrepreneurs, of the right lawyers, the right infrastructure, but also of people you can consult with that have done that before. And I think today there are more and more hubs that give entrepreneurs that ability to innovate and to see numerous investors and have then numerous mentors that can help them understand how to go through that first year from thinking about something to building something. And we were very lucky for that mentor to be our father.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I feel like usually when kids follow in their parents' footsteps, it's because the parent did a good job at modeling that behavior or that profession or whatever it is. It usually is a very good reflection on the parent. So go dad, and sounds like go grandfather.
Yeah, I'll just have to add to be accurate that going over the term sheet wasn't with my father, that was with my mother. So my mom's a lawyer.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you.
That all goes to my mom. She was my mentoring on term sheets was my mom.
Very good. Very good. Happy to clear that up. Very happy to. The final question I'll ask you is, as a CEO, as a leader of a company, what's something that you feel like is the most essential part of being a leader of a public or a private company? And then what's something that you've had to learn kind of in a difficult lesson that you've learned as a leader of a company?
I think sort of two key things is, and again, there's a bit of a, I wouldn't say a paradox, but sort of a subtlety on how these things go together, but perseverance and persistence together with flexibility. So I think that a lot of entrepreneurs have a good grasp of what they're trying to achieve. What is their vision? And their vision needs to go through a product market fit. And that needs, and you need to be flexible because you need to hear what people are telling you about what you're currently doing and take out what people are telling you if they don't believe in your vision. I met many, many people across the years that simply could not understand why would anybody just use another user interface, because you can buy stocks in a bank. And they, you know, and I heard that again and again, but you can buy stocks in a bank and I trust my bank. So why would people open accounts with eToro to buy stocks on eToro? And obviously you can explain commission-free stock trading, you can explain the social network, you can explain copy portfolios and popular investors. But at the end of the day, it comes down to user experience. It comes down to the fact that the user experience in most bank platforms are horrific. But if the person you talk to doesn't have that understanding that user experience and the experience and engagement in the mobile app is going to be significant in the next generation of investing, then then you won't necessarily learn something from the dialogue because you disagree on the vision. But if you look at the product itself and people tell you, you need to change something in the product, you need to change something of where you're going to next year, you need to add that feature if you want to succeed, that's something that you need to constantly learn, by the way, both from external people, but also from your users. And probably user feedback is as important as that part of flexibility together with being very persistent. So I think it's really about sort of constantly going towards your vision, but understanding that the path to success is not a straight line, and you might need to navigate and sort of take turns in order to get where you want to get.
Extremely well said. Wow, I love that answer. It's such a great answer. I think really smart way to answer that question. This has been a fantastic, we said before we hit record that you were hoping to have a fun hour. I had a great hour. This could not have been a more interesting conversation. So thank you so much for sharing your time and energy with us. Is there anything you want to leave viewers with before we go?
I think we're excited about seeking alpha audience always. So I'm also a reader. So happy for Seeking Alpha users, obviously, to join the discussion in eToro and share Seeking Alpha articles back on the eToro social network. So there are a lot of synergies here to explore in the future. So again, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure, and I'll keep watching your videos with other CEOs and come back for an update.
Absolutely, I would love it. And yeah.